Good morning. Hope you're having a great week. It is Tuesday, December 23rd. 3:09 a.m. Central Standard Time, local time here in Oklahoma City. I'm at the place where I pay to park the truck, and I'm leaving right now. Bobtail, I do not have a trailer attached, and I'm driving across town to the utility trailer dealer to pick up my trailer. The trailer's been in the shop for about a month. The trailer's actually been ready for about a week. It took them about 3 weeks. Well, it took them about 2 weeks to fix the trailer, and then it took them a week to get paid to process the paperwork. And they wouldn't release the trailer until they got paid because they said that that's their policy with Landstar due to them having issues getting paid by Landstar. So, yeah, the trailer was just ready after about 3 weeks. And now I'm going to drive over and pick up the trailer. I have a load booked that picks up Christmas Day, Thursday, December 25th. And I have 3 deliveries in the Seattle, Washington area on Monday. And I have used a lot more fuel. I'm going to have to rethink my fuel route because I have a lot less fuel than I anticipated. I thought that I had around half a tank of fuel. When the truck is sitting here parked, it uses almost no fuel maintaining the batteries. The APU will turn on and run for a couple of hours, like once or twice a week, to maintain the batteries. So whenever I parked the truck, it had half a tank of fuel. Now it has a quarter of a tank of fuel. Why did it burn a quarter of a tank of fuel over the course of a month? Well, when I got into the truck, I noticed that it was really hot in here. It's like 65 degrees outside. It's pretty nice outside. It's not cold or anything. But inside the truck, it was really hot. And I could feel heat blowing off of something. And it was coming from the area of the refrigerator. I was like, oh my goodness, did I leave the refrigerator on and it overheated? Because I left the door open on the refrigerator so it wouldn't get moldy in there, so it would dry out. But no, the refrigerator wasn't on. The heat wasn't coming off the refrigerator, and I was trying to track down where the heat was coming from. I was like, my goodness, it is really hot air. And the APU is directly under that area, and I thought, oh my goodness, the APU overheated. Maybe a coolant line broke, or it like ran out of oil or something. For the APU to get that hot, to put off that much heat, the APU is probably destroyed. So that's what I thought the issue was. Just a second. There's a damn ambulance that's decided to drive alongside me in these narrow-ass lanes. Like, why do people do stupid crap like this? Like, it's the middle of the night. There's hardly any traffic. Okay, the ambulance fell behind me. These really narrow lanes. The roads are wet. It's extremely high humidity, so windows are fogging up. Visibility is kind of low because the air is so thick. Speaking of which, let me turn my defrosters on. But the ambulance fell in behind me. They stopped driving alongside me. Wow, the defrosters cleared up the windows really fast. All right, what were we talking about before the ambulance? I can't remember. I think we were talking about the trailer situation, but yeah, the trailer's been ready for about a week. I booked a load, so the trailer was ready Friday at like 4:45 p.m., like 15 minutes before they closed for the weekend. And they offered to put the trailer out front so that I could pick it up over the weekend. And I was like, no, I still don't have a load, and brokers work bankers hours, so I'm not going to be able to book a load until Monday or later. So it's probably going to be middle of next week before I'm going to pick up the trailer. So they're like, all right. And I ended up booking a load around Tuesday or Wednesday. But the load didn't pick up for like 8 or 9 days. It didn't pick up until Christmas Day. So I called them this morning. Well, not this morning, but yesterday morning. I called them around noon Monday, yesterday, and asked them if they could put the trailer out front so that I could pick it up in the middle of the night tonight. They're like, yep, I'll go have them do it right now. So the trailer should be out there waiting on me. And one of the things I was really concerned with was trailer utilization stealing the trailer from me. I have that problem. Man, this person is hauling butt. Florida plates. I couldn't tell. Oh, there's a cop. Oh, I know what area we're driving through. This is the apartment complex is over to my left. Is a really bad neighborhood. That's where the cop was driving around with their lights on. I used to do security at the strip mall over to the right that we just passed. I didn't do security there very often. The company I worked for like 20 years ago, I was an armed security guard, and we worked for the property owner. We didn't work for the individual stores that leased on the property. We worked for the person that owned the property. He owned a whole bunch of strip malls all over the Oklahoma City metro. And we had the contracts for all of his properties. And I worked at one property pretty much the whole time I worked there. I worked there for like 2 or 3 years. And I worked at one specific property. It was a shopping center in Moore, Oklahoma. But occasionally I would work at other places, and that little shopping center right there we just passed is one of the places I worked at a couple of times. And man, it is ghetto. Really ghetto. Because of the apartment complexes on the other side of the interstate. The kids walk over from those apartment complexes and steal shit out of the shopping center. And not just steal stuff, like they vandalize. They do a lot of stuff. They're a huge problem. To give you an idea of how bad it is, I'll tell you about one specific incident that I had whenever I was over there. These were young kids, like 8, 10 years old, and they had a gang. They formed like a gang. And they would walk around in groups of like 10 to 20. And one of the times they were walking around in a group of like 20 of them, and they had a couple of BB guns, and they were just shooting stuff. They were just walking around in broad daylight, just shooting things in the shopping center with their BB guns. A huge mob of like 20 8 to 10-year-old kids. Just a second here. This truck is hauling some butt. These roads are slick. They're wet. We're going through a pretty sharp turn. I'm bobtail. I cannot stand to drive bobtail. In my opinion, it is so much more dangerous to drive bobtail than to have a trailer, because when you're bobtail, you have no weight on your drive tires. It is so easy for you to lose traction on your drive tires when you're bobtail. Like it's terrifying for me to drive around bobtail. The truck has so much power that on wet roads, if you press the throttle down, bobtail, you can turn sideways because you have there's so much power in your drive tires and there's no weight on them. It is so easy for you to lose traction because you have so much torque, not not speed, but so much torque on your drive tires, and your brakes are so incredibly powerful. Whenever you don't have any weight on them, on those drive tires, if you do any braking or any throttle, it is so easy to break traction. I have a left lane exit in 2.5 miles. There's a truck that just merged on from the left, jumped 2 lanes to the right, and is passing me on the right. Well, they backed off. They're just kind of speed matching me now. At least they're not alongside me. They're just barely behind me. So anyway, I can't remember what we were talking about, but the trailer should be out there. It should be ready. We have quite an adventure going up into the deep northwest in the winter, in the middle of winter, over the Christmas holiday. Hopefully weather doesn't get too bad. But oh yeah, I was talking about having to redo my fuel route because I burned a lot more fuel sitting there parked. So I was trying to track down the source of the heat, and I thought the APU overheated. I thought that maybe the refrigerator was left on and overheated. And I was like, man, that is just way too much heat, and it feels like it's blowing on me. It doesn't feel like it's emanating. It feels like it's blowing. And I was trying to track down the source of the heat, and it only took me like 10 or 15 seconds to find it. Like with all this stuff was going through my mind. It makes it sound like this took 20 or 30 minutes. No, this all happened. Like I'm thinking about all this stuff over the course of like 10 or 15 seconds. And then I realize where the heat's coming from, and I look over at the display to verify, and sure enough, the bunk heater is on. I left the damn bunk heater on while the truck was parked. So that bunk heater, it's a diesel. Second here. Like I said, I'm really scared driving bobtail. We're on slick roads, so I'm trying to go around these turns super cautious. I mean, it's not icy or anything. It's just wet. It's like 65 degrees outside. But the bunk heater, it's a diesel bunk heater, so it pulls fuel directly out of the fuel tank and burns it to create heat. And it also uses electricity for its fuel pump and its, ignition mechanism and all of, there's a lot of stuff on it that also uses electricity. So it's burning fuel to heat the truck and it's consuming electricity, and the APU is having to turn on more often than normal to charge the batteries for the electricity that it's using. So over the course of a month of that bunk heater running and the APU running more than normal, it burned up a quarter tank of fuel. I thought I was going to have a half a tank of fuel, and I was going to be able to drive basically all the way to Amarillo. Before getting fuel. But now, I'm thinking I might get fuel today. Because a quarter of a tank is roughly 50 gallons. I have two 100-gallon tanks. I'm going to go ahead. I usually don't get over in this right lane, but traffic is so light here in the middle of the night that I'm going to go ahead and get over in the right lane. I have 12 miles until my exit. But I think I might get fuel here in this area. Right over here in this vicinity of town is where some of the truck stops are at, where we can get good fuel prices. And a quarter of a tank of fuel, roughly 50 gallons. If I'm getting really good fuel mileage, like the way that I do my fuel route, my fuel planning, just as soon as I get into the damn lane, I have somebody merge on in front of me that's just fucking Sunday. Sorry about the language. I try not to get too vulgar on here, but Sunday stroll onto the interstate. I'm doing 55. I'm going 10 miles an hour under the speed limit. This person just merged on in front of me doing like 45, 50 miles an hour. That's the reason I don't like being in the right lane. Because these city dwellers, these four-wheelers, these cars, whenever they're driving around town and then they hop onto the interstate just to, cut across town for a mile or two, they'll drive on the interstate like they're still on city streets. They'll hop onto the interstate doing 45, and they'll just like chill on the interstate. I hate being in that right lane dealing with city traffic. But yeah, this is throwing a wrench into my entire fuel route plan. So what I'll probably end up doing, because a quarter of a tank, 50 gallons, the way I do my trip planning is I base everything on a 6 mile per gallon average. Unless I know for sure I'm going to get less than that. Because most of the time, I'm easily getting more than 6 miles per gallon. So if I do a trip plan on 6 miles per gallon, then that's pretty easy to do. I'm going to, not run out of fuel on that. I'm not cutting it close. So if you do the 6 mile per gallon, 50 gallons, that's 300 miles. Well, I'm driving like 40 or 50 miles. I think I'm driving around 50 miles round trip just to pick the trailer up. And then it's a 200 and something mile drive down to Dallas to pick up the load. That's 250 miles. And then, it could be, I'm not sure where exactly in the Dallas area I would get fuel, but I would basically be running on fumes by the time I got down to Dallas and picked the trailer up. It would be cutting it close just to pick the trailer up on the fuel I have. And fuel prices vary wildly. So you don't want to be stuck in an area and be forced to fuel at whatever price it is, because you could end up paying 50 cents or $1 a gallon extra for fuel. And considering that, these things hold 200 gallons of fuel, that means you could be paying $100, $200 extra for fuel. It's a lot of money. Right here is the truck stops. We got a Pilot, a TA, a Flying J, a Loves. I'm not sure what else is in this area. That might be all of them. But I'm planning on using TA on this load. Fuel prices have been dropping quite a bit over the last month. They've dropped a lot. Fuel prices shot up while I was out over the road. They got pretty high, and then they dropped back to where they were whenever I first left the house, and then they dropped much lower than that. To put it into some kind of context, these numbers are not going to be accurate. These are from memory, so they might be wrong. They are going to be wrong. I'm guesstimating. Whenever I left the house, I think fuel in Oklahoma City was. This was when I went out over the road last time. I think fuel in Oklahoma City was around $2.40 a gallon. And then while I was out over the road, there was a refinery fire in the central part of the U.S. and a couple of other things that happened. And fuel prices in Oklahoma City got up to, I don't know, like $2.65, $2.85, somewhere in that area. And whenever I got back home, fuel prices were up at like $2.70 a gallon in Oklahoma City. Right now, they're down somewhere around $2.11 or $2.14 a gallon. Significant drop in fuel prices over the last month. Now, the prices that I'm talking about, that is the raw fuel price. That's the only thing I look at. So anytime I'm talking about fuel, I'm talking about raw fuel price. What is raw fuel price? That is the price that I pay after all discounts and also not including fuel tax. Because whatever fuel tax I pay at the pump is meaningless. I pay fuel tax based off the miles I drive in every state. So I just want to look at what my raw fuel price is whenever I'm buying fuel to make sure I'm getting the best deal. Fuel tax in Oklahoma is somewhere in the ballpark of 20 cents a gallon. So the raw fuel price being $2.11 to $2.14, that is add another 20 cents to that to get the price including fuel tax. So that would give you the after discount price. And you would think that fuel prices would shoot up because of what's going on in Venezuela. And for those of you who don't know what's going on in Venezuela, Venezuela has the largest known or guesstimated oil reserves in the world. The most oil that we are aware of that exists in the world is in Venezuela. if I remember correctly. If I could be wrong on that, but I'm quite certain that Venezuela has the most known oil in the entire world. They have more oil than Saudi Arabia. And they have tons and tons and tons of oil that's already been pumped out of the ground that's sitting in reserves. I think they have also the most oil reserves in the world. You know, oil that's been pumped out of the ground just sitting because they've been sanctioned for years. They can't get the oil out of their country because of United States sanctions. It's very difficult for them to get oil out of their country. And we've been cracking down on sanctions. Just like a week ago, we blockaded Venezuela. Like, we have been basically commandeering vessels coming in and out of Venezuela that are bypassing our sanctions and transporting oil. And it's been sort of a blockade for a while now because Venezuelan ships are afraid to leave Venezuela for fear of getting, their ship commandeered by the United States. But we officially blockaded them like a week ago. So you would think that that would cause oil prices to go up. You know, the largest amount of oil in the world is just completely shut down now. But no, it's not having much impact at all on fuel prices. I think people are actually optimistic that it could cause fuel prices to drop dramatically because we're attempting regime change in Venezuela. We've been attempting regime change for a very long time. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue. We were attempting to change regimes under Trump and under Obama and under Biden. I don't know how far back it goes that we've been trying to get Maduro out of office, but we've been trying lots and lots of different ways to get Maduro out of office. I think we've tried to assassinate him. We've tried a lot of different methods, and right now we are blockading the country, basically shutting down import-export on the country. We're basically sieging the country, which is an act of war, but we don't call that stuff war anymore. But I think people are optimistic that we're going to be successful. And if we're successful in regime change and we get a puppet government into Venezuela and the American companies, the U.S. companies, are able to go back in there and exploit their oil market, their oil reserves, then we're going to have the market flooded with oil. And it is going to drive down fuel prices to nothing. Like, there is just tons of oil just sitting, ready to be shipped out right now. It's already been pumped. And if we just suddenly throw all that onto the market, it'll cause the price per barrel to plummet. All right, 0.3 miles, Cimarron Road. All right, there's the utility trailer sign. So it's over there on the right. It is 3:38 a.m. I should be out of here by 4 a.m. and it's a 20-30 minute drive back. So I should be back over there by 4:30 a.m. Actually, you know what? It's going to take a little bit longer than that because I think I'm going to get fuel on the way over. And then hopefully I can get back across town to the house before morning traffic picks up. But yeah, I think I'm going to top off fuel here in Oklahoma City. I don't know why Google... Oh, I turned the audio for Google off. That's the reason Google. Sorry, I'm looking for the road. Looks like this is it. And now just need to look for the entrance to utility, and the trailer should be right at the entrance because it's gated. So there should be a few parking spots outside their gate, and the trailer should be in one of those parking spots. I see the trailer right there. There is our trailer. And it looks like they put a landing gear latch on. It's hard to tell from here, but it looked like maybe there might have been a landing gear latch. Very nice, very nice. All right, let's get out and take a peek before we back under it. I don't want to high hook it. Whenever they've been driving it around with a Hostler for a long time, you have no idea what height it's going to be at. All right, looks like they left the old handle on. That's the wrong handle, but they did put a latch on. So I'm going to pause this while I go get hooked up to everything. All right, I just realized I left my lock on the trailer. I didn't know that I left my lock on the trailer. I tried to make. I remember that I planned on removing the lock from the trailer, but I'm guessing that I got interrupted when I went back, because I remember going back to remove my lock on the trailer before I left, and I think I ended up getting interrupted. Like, whenever I get interrupted on something, I'll completely forget whatever in the world I was doing.
1,000 feet, turn left onto North Cimarron Road.
So I'm going to top off fuel at the TA on the way back. The cheapest place in town is a Petro on the east side of town. That's a pain in the butt to get in and out of, and I'm not going to go all the way over there, 10, 15 miles out of route just to save a penny a gallon. It's $2.14 a gallon there. It's $2.15 a gallon at the Pilot that we just passed, and it's $2.16 a gallon at the TA across the street from that Pilot. I'm going to go ahead and get fuel at the TA because I try to stick with the same chain whenever I'm getting fuel, as long as they're really close. Like, if it's like 1 or 2 cents a gallon difference, then I will stick with one particular chain. And TA Petro is much cheaper than Pilot Flying J across pretty much the entire route, except one or two places. Pilot Flying J is like at 1 penny per gallon cheaper. So I'm going to do TA Petro through this route. I've been using Pilot Flying J for the last year or so. But TA Petro is quite a bit cheaper right now. And then at the first of the year, we could have significant changes in fuel prices on Landstar's fuel card, because we get the contracts are generally, from what I've seen since I've been with Landstar, January 1st, we get new contracts every year. So whatever contracts we sign are good until January 1st. January 1st through December 31st. So on January 1st, you can see
turn left onto the I-40 East ramp, then merge onto
massive
East.
changes in fuel prices. Like Love's might be much cheaper than everything else. And I hate taking these turns into areas that I cannot see. It's just completely pitch black over here into the area that I'm turning. But yeah, the tire needs to be patched. They did not fix the tire. The tire is low air pressure. If I had to guess, I would say the tire has about 70 pounds of air in it right now. The dead animal. The auto air system will keep it inflated, but that tire needs to be patched. I've done my due diligence on it. I put it into the shop multiple times. Well, I put it into the shop once, but I tried to get TA to patch the tire, and whenever it got moved over to utility, I called utility and told them about the tire and asked them to please check on that. And there were at least 2 or 3 other phone calls aside from my initial phone call with utility, at which I asked them if they fixed the tire. And they said that they inspected it. I was dealing with office people, not the mechanics, and they really didn't know what was going on. And they were like, yeah, it's on the list of stuff, but I don't know if they did anything with it. But it is on the list of things to inspect. They did not do a DOT inspection. I was under the impression that they were going to do a DOT inspection because I put it into the shop, no semi-traffic. Construction on Garth Brooks, no semi-traffic. So the DOT inspection expires in March. So that tire still has a slow air leak. That still hasn't had a DOT inspection done since March of 2025. But I'm doing a drop and hook in Louisville, Dallas, on my next load. So I have done my due diligence on trying to get this trailer fixed. I'm not going to spend more time on the shop. I'm not going to go put it into the TA right now to get that tire fixed and to get a DOT inspection done on it. I'm done dealing with this trailer. I'm doing a drop-in hook in Dallas. I'm getting rid of it. And then I'm going to have a new problem with the next trailer. I just spent a month getting this thing fixed. They did put a new latch on the landing gear for the landing gear handle. It has a latch now. They welded on a new latch. They welded on new brackets for the mud flap bar. So the mud flap bar is secure on there. And the ABS is functional. The ABS light came on whenever I hooked up the electrical, stayed on for 2 seconds, and then went off like it's supposed to. And I have no errors on my dash on the ABS. Sorry, just watching this truck passing me. So yeah, it's really irritating that the trailer's been in the shop for a month and all the issues still aren't resolved. But now, at least it doesn't need like several weeks in the shop. It just needs a couple of hours in the shop to get a DOT inspection and a tire patch.
In 2 miles, use the right lane to take exit 140.
Oh, fuel prices. Let's talk about fuel prices real quick. So I just did a real quick new fuel route. Fuel prices in Oklahoma City are much cheaper than everywhere else around here. So like 214, 215, 216 a gallon in Oklahoma City. The Dallas area is like 235 a gallon, 230 a gallon. It's like 15, 20 cents a gallon more expensive in Dallas. And it's roughly the same price in Amarillo, 235, 240. And then whenever you get into the Denver area, fuel prices drop back down to like 214 a gallon. And then just west of Cheyenne, is that Laramie? That's up at the top of that mountain. I think it's Laramie. It's like 207 a gallon. That's the cheapest place on the whole route, is just west of Cheyenne. Fuel prices are really cheap in between like Denver and Laramie, Wyoming. So I'll top off here in Oklahoma City. I'll top off again in Laramie. And then
In a half mile, use the right lane to take exit 140.
Boise. Second here, I'm coming up on my exit. Boise, Idaho is like 235 a gallon. It's around the same price as the Dallas area.
Use the right lane to take exit 140.
And so I'll top off again in Boise.
In a quarter mile, use the right lane to turn slightly left onto South Morgan Road.
Just a second here. I'm trying to figure out what lane to be in. It's a double left, but it's not a sharp left turn. And I need to make a left turn right after I get through this intersection. So I'm going to stay in this left lane. Normally, you want to be in the outside turn lane
Use the right lane to turn slightly left
in one of
onto
these
South Morgan
trucks.
Road.
But these lanes are designed for trucks to be in either lane. All right, here we go.
In 800 feet, turn left.
Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
Then your destination will be on the left.
That sounds good. And then I'll probably end up topping off again at the TA just east of Seattle. But I really haven't, done a fuel route past Boise. I haven't figured out what fuel I'm going to be doing past Boise. But I'm going to be doing a lot of miles
Destination's on the left.
in Washington, so I think I'm going to have to top off fuel. Like, I definitely just south of Portland is likely where I'm going after I deliver this load. I'm going to go to the TA just south of Portland, and that has the cheapest fuel prices in the Oregon, Washington area. But I think I'm going to need fuel before I get there. So let's do on-duty fueling. Landstar, for anybody new to Landstar, Landstar has like an automatic system that checks your fuel times on your fuel card versus your ELD. And if you do not switch over to on-duty fueling whenever you get fuel, then you'll automatically be flagged as a log violation. So the one thing that I don't like about TA Petro is the fuel app on Pilot Flying J is so much easier to use. I can just click on the fuel button on the fuel app, and it will save all my information and put it all in for me. And I'm going to try to set that up with the TA app, because Oregon especially is a pain in the ass, because you have to enter like your fuel permit number, which is your license plate number. So I'm going to pause this while I try to get the TA fuel app set up. All right, all topped off on fuel and ready to roll. Heading back to the place where we pay to park the truck. It took me a while to figure out how to use the Pump Smart TA fuel app thing, because it wouldn't accept my card number. But the card has another really tiny number up in like the top left corner. So what I did was I put in like that little tiny number in the top left, and then the big number in the center of the card after that, and it accepted it then. So apparently that number up in the top left was part of the number. The short number was just like, I don't know, some personal identifier. The other one was might have been some routing or some, I have no idea. But I finally figured out what card number it wanted. And it still made me put all of my information in at the pump, but it told me that the first time I used the card, it's going to ask for a lot of information. It made it didn't say it explicitly, but it insinuated that in the future, I'm not going to have to enter all that stuff again. So basically, the only thing that I didn't have to do was swipe my fuel card and swipe my rewards card.
At the light, turn right onto South Oregon Road.
I just had to punch in the code that it gave me and then put in all of the other information that it requested. And Landstar makes you put in a bunch of information. Oh, crap, that is a massive hole. Just a second here. Let me slow down while I go through this. Oh, my goodness.
In 800 feet, use the left 2 lanes to turn left onto the railed I-40 east.
Have my lights on? Yeah, I got my lights on. Like, man, it's dark out here. Well, we got the lights on. We're rolling. I need to clean off the lights. They're filthy. That's probably why it looks so dark. Another thing is
Use the left 2 lanes to turn left onto the railed I-40 east.
A really big piece of drama that's happening with the truck right now that is just stressing me out like you wouldn't believe is the coolant leak. So the coolant leak is still happening, and it has a really long history. I've been dealing with a slow coolant leak for, oh my goodness, I would say over a year. It's been like a year and a half that I've been dealing with a slow coolant leak, trying to track down the source of the problem. And around the time, almost the exact same time that I found the slow coolant leak and fixed it, great. What are these four-wheelers doing? This asshole is passing me in this ending damn lane. So I made the left turn, and there were people making right turns, and the two assholes making right turns got into the lane to the left of me and almost ran me into the damn shoulder. Middle of the morning, middle of the night, hardly any traffic, and still you have stupid people doing stupid stuff. You know, what did Forrest Gump's mom say? Stupid is, stupid does. Mama always said that. So, yeah, I've been having a really slow coolant leak where I've just, been adding a little bit of coolant, like maybe a quarter of a gallon of coolant a month, maybe a half a gallon a month. And then I finally found the source of that slow coolant leak. It was just loose clamps on a rubber hose. I tightened those clamps up and the leak stopped. And then immediately after that, like the same day, I had another leak start. Well, actually, no. These two leaks were... All right, so I had the slow leak going on for like a year and a half. And then all of a sudden, I started having a bad leak whenever the truck was running. Only when the truck was running, not when it was sitting, only when it was running, and only whenever it was under strain. Like if I was just putting down the road like I am right now, it wouldn't leak coolant. But if I was like going over a hill and, high pressure, high temperature, then it would leak. But it also was just leaking a really slow leak whenever it was parked. Well, I found the source of that slow leak whenever it was parked, and it was just loose clamps on a cable. And I thought maybe that would fix the other leak as well, but it didn't. There was two completely separate leaks. And that leak that only happens whenever the truck is under pressure, whenever high temperature, high pressure, that leak just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It started out, that leak just started like 2 months ago. And it has just been getting worse and worse and worse over time, to where initially it was leaking hardly anything at all. And like if I was driving like this, I could go through an entire drive shift and it leak almost no coolant on flat land. But if I were to go over a hill or a mountain or something like that, then yeah, it would start leaking quite a bit of coolant. Now it's getting to the point where even driving on flat land, it's leaking coolant. And I'm having to put a lot of coolant into the truck. Like I'm putting like half a gallon of coolant in every drive shift. And it's probably going to get really bad going over the mountains in Wyoming. I was trying to say a few states all at once. I was thinking of Wyoming, and what other states have mountains? Idaho, Utah, Oregon, Washington. I was thinking of all the states while trying to say Wyoming, and it just like came out as Wyoming. Okay, so there's a lot of mountains I'm going to be driving through on this trip, and I'm really concerned about it. What I think I'm going to do on the coolant, I've been trying to find the source of the coolant leak on my own, and I just have not been able to locate it. It's on the right side of the engine. It's on the back of the engine, toward the cab. So the right side toward the cab. And when I use left and right, whenever you're talking about left and right side of the truck, you're always doing it from the perspective of sitting in the driver's seat. So from the perspective of the driver's seat, the right side of the engine. And back toward the cab. And it's really hard to find the source of the leak because there's so many parts in that area, and it's behind a whole bunch of stuff. And I've done a lot of research on it, and I think I know what it is. There is a part that commonly fails in that area and causes, like, don't you just love people? I got this person that merged on in front of me, which is no big deal. But then this four-wheeler couldn't get behind me. They had to fly past me, cut me off, and slam on their brakes and get between me and this slow vehicle that just merged on in front of me.
Take exit 147A, drive 44 west, Oklahoma 3 east, toward Dallas.
But I've been trying to find the source of the leak because you do not want to put a vehicle into a shop and let a mechanic go on a wild goose chase to find the source of a problem. That can bankrupt you. Like, that can cost like an unlimited amount of money. You're just basically writing a mechanic a blank check when you let them just go hunting for a problem.
Continue for half a mile. In half a mile,
So I've been trying to find the source of the problem, hoping that I can locate it, and if I can locate it, maybe it's something I can fix on my own. But I haven't been able to locate it, but what I think it is, a common part that fails and causes coolant leaks in that area is on the EGR, which, let me try to remember what EGR stands for. Exhaust
continue on I-44.
gas recycler. I can't remember what exactly EGR stands for. The EGR basically cycles the exhaust and the coolant. It's some kind of, it's another useless, unnecessary part added to the truck, like the DEF system, for environmental reasons. It's supposedly better for the environment. All of this extra shit on the truck is really bad for the environment. It does not help the environment. It's just a massive, it's a lot of extra expenses. It's great for all of the part and service companies. It just increases the number of possible failures by an astronomical amount with all these stupid environmentalist systems we have to have on the vehicles. If somebody did a realistic breakdown of the environmental impact of having all of this extra shit on the truck, of all of the manufacturing plants that we have to make diesel exhaust fluid, and all the manufacturing plants that we have to create the parts and move the parts around the country, and everything related to all of these things that are supposedly environmentally friendly, I would suspect that having all of these parts on the truck are much worse for the environment than not having them on the truck. I would be willing to bet my life that it is many times worse for the environment than having these systems on the trucks. Almost all the problems I've had with this truck have been related to an environmentalist crap that's added to the truck. DEF systems, EGRs, crap like that. Completely unnecessary systems that serve absolutely zero purpose in the functionality of the truck. They're just added to the truck for environmental reasons. And I'm pretty sure it's not legal. The Supreme Court ruled a couple of years ago that all of these government agencies, like the environmental, the EPA or whatever, the Environmental Protection Agency or whatever the hell it's called, and the FMCSA, and all of these other agencies that create law, do not have the authority to create law. Congress and the Senate, the legislative branch of the United States, does not have the authority to create entities and grant them the same lawmaking authority that they have. So the Supreme Court has already ruled that all of these laws that we have from the EPA and the FMCSA and all these other, the ATF, all these government agencies that create law, the Supreme Court's already ruled that that's illegal. They don't have the authority to do that. They're not lawmaking bodies.
Keep left to continue on.
But for some reason, nothing has changed. There's a really bad accident or construction. I don't know what it is over on the left. I've got too much stuff going on over here to be able to look over there and see what was going on. I think it might have been an accident, but I couldn't tell. Sorry, I completely forgot what I was talking about looking over there at that. I think I kind of wrapped it up. It was the, I don't know, the EPA stuff, the coolant system. Something else I just thought of. Somebody replied to one of my videos recently where I was talking about some recent news about CRST. A lot of trucking companies are having issues. A lot of companies are shutting down and laying off and reducing hiring and stuff like that. CRST was in the news recently that they were shutting down part of their company, one of their divisions. I think it was a division that runs basically just spot market freight. And they gave a 60-day notice of layoffs to a bunch of their drivers. They gave them like 60-day notice that they were shutting down their division and they were going to be laid off. And somebody replied to the video where I basically just said what was in that news article and told me I was wrong. That CRST is not getting rid of any drivers. They're not shutting anything down. They're just moving drivers from one contract to another. It's basically what was in that article was completely wrong. I don't believe that. I would trust a news article. There was actually multiple articles. It wasn't just one news article. There were multiple articles on that all said the same thing. And I would trust that more than some random person posting a comment on a YouTube video. But who knows? Maybe that person works for CRST and what was reported in the news was not accurate. I have been in situations like that where I've been in the know on something that was in the news. Like I had firsthand knowledge on what they were reporting on, and the news was completely wrong on what they were reporting. And I know for a fact that companies lie about stuff, and I know that the government lies about stuff. So who knows? Maybe that person with a random comment was correct and the news articles were wrong. I'll give you an example of the government lying about stuff. So I worked for the Department of Homeland Security, TSA, whenever they first started up. Initially, when the TSA was created, we were under the FAA. I didn't like that. The director that was in charge of our area, whenever I was at the TSA, was an arrogant jackass. I could not stand the FAA guy. But whenever the TSA was created, we were put under the FAA. The FAA guy that was in charge of our region would come through the airport all the time, and he was just so snobby and so arrogant, and he would not follow process and procedure, and he would throw a little temper tantrum. And what in the hell? I have the vehicles in front of me just slowing down. They're almost coming to a stop. We're doing 40 miles an hour. We just dropped 20 miles an hour going from 60 to 40. And then I have a line of people flying by me on the left. Now the cars in front of me are speeding up. Like, what are people doing out here? Is it just a bunch of inebriated drivers? But anyway, I couldn't stand the FAA people. But we weren't under the FAA for very long. They moved us under DHS, Department of Homeland Security. And the DHS person was awesome. The regional director was awesome. Our site director was awesome. Our site director was a retired Air Force colonel. And he was just like really chill, laid back. He was a little bit too laid back, too chill. He actually had an incident where some old woman tried to like sue the government for millions of dollars. So what happened was, I don't want to explain the whole screening process, but we generally work in pairs of a one man, one woman, because men are not supposed to screen women and women aren't supposed to screen men unless it's like some kind of emergency. Yes, a guy could search a woman or a woman could search a guy if like you were the only person that was around that could do the searches. You know, you just have to do it. But it was me and this old woman. We were doing gate screening, random searches at the gate. And we pulled this guy out for a random search at the gate. And I was screening him and she was searching his bag. And she found something in the bag and called me over and asked me what we should do. And I was like, call a supervisor. And we called a supervisor. And the supervisor came over there. And the supervisor called a Leo, law enforcement officer. And the law enforcement it ended up the site director, the Air Force colonel, showed up at the gate. And we had me, her, the supervisor, the site director, and one or two law enforcement officers, airport police, which are like full cops. They're not like security guards. They're like full police officers. Well, the item in the bag was some type of something with a whole bunch of wires around it. It looked like an improvised explosive device. And the guy was trying to explain to us what it was. And he was saying that it was a firework, like it was a commercial grade firework. It was an explosive. And the site director looked inside the bag and said, oh, yeah, I've seen one of these before. And he just reaches in the bag, grabs a hold of this, what looks like an IED, and pulls it out of the bag. And that old woman, it freaked her out. And she basically claimed that traumatized her. She was out from work for several months after that. And she was like 70 years old or something. We had a lot of old women working there at the TSA. There was I don't know why we had so many old women working there, like 70-year-old women. We had a bunch of them. But and it was a physical labor job. And what really pissed me off about having, old women around was that they couldn't do the physical labor. So people like me, I was having to do all the work while they stood around doing nothing. I don't have anything against women as long as they pull their damn weight. If women want equal rights, they want they want the same pay, they want to do the same job, then they need to do the same damn job. I wouldn't have a problem with a 70-year-old woman working at the TSA if I didn't have to do their damn job for them. But I got really pissed off working at the TSA because we had so many old people and so many out of shape people that couldn't do the damn job, and I was having to do their job for them. It was really frustrating. But anyway, yeah, she tried to get a retirement off of that little incident. Where's my parking spot? But anyway, let me get set up for this parking spot here. Hopefully we can do a decent job where it's mostly a straight back.
In 600 feet, turn right.
And oh my goodness, I look like I know what I'm doing. I am lined up perfect. You can't get any better than that. It's just straight back in there. I'm about to take the camera out just to show you, to brag about this, because I did such an awesome setup on this. This is, I think I might just be the greatest driver in the world. It's possible. It's possible. Let's go on duty. I forgot to do a remark. Let's do a remark. Remarks. PTI for pre-trip, post-trip inspection. And I'm going to pause this while I go move the car. I'll be right back. All right. Okay, we got the car moved out of the spot. Now we're going to back in. Let's see if I can manage this straight back. It's a pretty tight back because the people parked on either side of me are angled. They're both angled in toward me. That's making my spot a lot tighter than it should be. All right, so let's wrap up the story, and then I'm going to put things away in the truck. Whenever I got here, I just packed the stuff in the truck. I didn't put it away. I want to put it away before I leave, so I need to do that. So let's wrap up. Let me do a vehicle inspection report really quick. That's not necessary. You only need to fill out vehicle inspection reports if there is an issue to report, but I still fill them out on every inspection that I log, every pre-trip, post-trip. I don't log inspections whenever I'm getting fuel. I do walk around inspections whenever I get fuel, or basically anytime I stop, but I don't log those inspections. The only inspections I log on my ELD are pre-trips and post-trips. And now we're off duty. All right, so what was the lie from the government? So the airport that I worked at was the Reno Tahoe International Airport. You might be able to find news articles on this. This was back in 2003. Somewhere in that area. I can't remember exactly what year it was. But the local news was reporting that there was black mold in the airport. And there were people that were trying to sue the airport for lung issues and stuff like that. I think it was airport employees were trying to sue the airport. And the local news was trying to cover the black mold at the airport. And the airport, the airlines, which basically are the people who run the airport, Southwest Airlines basically ran Reno Tahoe International Airport. And they were telling the news and everybody that there was no black mold. And I think that they were asking the TSA as well about the black mold, and our site director was telling the news that there was no black mold. I actually had a few run-ins with the news people where they were like coming over and like recording us and going into areas that they were trying to get into secure areas and stuff like that to record things. And I actually had to run the news people off a few times. They got pissed off at me. But it was all a lie. There was black mold in the airport, and we knew it for a fact. All of the people in the government and all of the people at the airport, the airline people, all knew that we had black mold. They pulled all of the TSA people into our little room. We had like an area back behind the Southwest ticket counter. We had a room that we could have meetings in and stuff like that. And they pulled all of us in there for this big meeting. And it was the site director, that Air Force colonel, and I forget who all else was in there in leadership. I think there might have been some airline managers in there. I'm not sure. But they told us in that meeting that there was black mold, and that's what was going on. They said, you guys are going to see people doing stuff throughout the airport, and they're dealing with a black mold problem. And they said that the reason that they are lying to the news about whether or not we have black mold was they didn't want to panic people. They said there was absolutely zero risk to the public on the black mold. So they didn't want to tell the public that there was black mold because it would result in panic and people would stop coming to the airport and there would be a bunch of lawsuits and all kinds of crazy stuff. People would just overreact. They said that the black mold is contained and they have like some type of vacuums or something. The walls that the black mold is in, they have like vacuums in them that are causing a negative pressure where the black mold can't get out. And it was like a 30-minute presentation of them explaining to us that yes, there is black mold, there is zero public risk, and the people that we have fixing the problem is, they said that it was the same, it was like one of the best like forensic investigative units in the world or something like that. They said that they were the group of people that some TV show was based off of, like CSI or something like that. It was a show that I don't watch. It was a popular like forensic investigation type show, like cop show or whatever. And the people that they had there, and they were in the room during this meeting, and they were doing a presentation to us bragging about who they were and that they consult on the show, and that so-and-so character is based off of me, and stuff like that. But they were basically selling us on the whole idea that they had the best people in the world working on the problem. There was zero risk to the public, and everybody needed to lie about this because we didn't want to cause public panic. And as far as I know, no one leaked out the information. I think the reason that we had that meeting is because people figured out what was going on, and they were afraid of people telling the reporters what was really going on and that we really did have a black mold problem. And I think they had that meeting to, like, this was back shortly after 9/11, where everybody was super patriotic. and they basically pulled the Patriot card. They were like, you know, you need to do this for your country type stuff. And as far as I know, nobody leaked the information out of there. And we all had security clearances. It was a secret security clearance for that job role. And they basically also insinuated that this was, you know, this would be a breach of security to say, you know, anything we talk about in this meeting. So yeah, the government lies about stuff, and the government hides stuff from the public. Things that I think are completely unnecessary. The government thinks of the average everyday person as a child. There is a lot of stuff that is not national security. Like, there is an extreme problem with overclassification in the government. They classify stuff to hide it from the public because they think that the public is just going to panic. They think they just don't want to have a reaction from the public. They'll use that is not a legitimate reason to classify something. Is just because they don't want the public to know about it for fear of how they might react. That is not a legitimate reason for classification. I'll give you an example. We had intelligence given to us at the airport for things, you know, just to give us a heads up of what's going on so that we know what to look for. So back when I was working for the TSA, I mean, I could talk about this forever. And I was talking about the coolant. I don't know how we digressed off of the coolant onto this. I'll try to wrap this up, get back onto the coolant, wrap up the video, get stuff put away in the truck, and then get home before morning traffic gets too bad. So we had a book at the checkpoint that had secret information in it, intelligence stuff, you know, from all kinds of intelligence agencies, from the military. I'll give you an example of something that was in that book. Back during this time when I was working for the TSA, we started implementing procedures at the checkpoint to look for certain things. And there was a public outcry about it. People got pissed off about having to go through these procedures because we started telling people that they couldn't bring drinks through the checkpoint. We started limiting the amount of like toothpaste and stuff like that people could bring through the checkpoint. We started making people take their shoes off and run them through the x-ray machine. We didn't just come up with those procedures off the top of our head. You know, there wasn't just somebody in a room going, you know what? It'd probably be better if you know, we didn't allow this through. Every single thing we did was because of a very specific threat. In that little book that had secret stuff, intelligence that was given to us, one of the many things that was in there was pictures from somewhere in the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan, I don't know where, I can't remember. I think it said in the report where it was from, but it had information and it had pictures. The terrorist groups that they were locating over there were going out and purchasing the exact same equipment that we had at our security checkpoints at the airports. They were reproducing the exact checkpoint. They were studying our processes and procedures, and they were trying to figure out how to get things through without being detected. And we were changing our processes and procedures to counter what they were doing. So they had pictures of basically this mud hut in Iraq that had the exact same x-ray machines and metal detectors, you know, hand wands and walk-through metal detectors. These people, I don't know where they were getting this crap. This is not something that you go down and buy at your Walmart. Like, these people were very well funded, very well connected. They were able to get equipment that was not easy to get. They had like every brand of hand wand that we used, and we used a lot of brands. They had like a dozen different brands of hand wands, and they had all kinds of different bags throughout the room, and IEDs and all kinds of different configurations. Like, there was just, it was crazy. I'm surprised that we didn't have another incident with airplanes after 9/11. Like, I have, there's probably been countless times that our, law enforcement, military, whoever, has stopped some kind of plan from happening. But anyway, yeah, that whole thing was just to point out that, yes, the government lies, companies lie, and I forgot why I was talking about the government lying and companies lying. I digress off into stories. So let's go back to the coolant thing. I think what I'm going to do is, after I deliver this load, I'm going to put the truck in the shop at the dealer, Tech, in Portland. I cannot stand Bruckner's, the Volvo dealers in this area, but I have dealt with Tech in Portland, another Volvo dealer, and I like that Volvo dealer. So I think I'm going to end up putting the truck into Tech in Portland and just paying the thousands of dollars to get the damn coolant leak fixed, because I cannot figure it out on my own, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and it's going to get to the point where I just can't drive the truck. I suspect that it's going to cost me like $3,000 to get that coolant leak fixed, and I'm trying to avoid spending that much money. I think what it is it's a little plastic part on the EGR. Everything I've read is that particular area where it's leaking, that little plastic connector that is in between the EGR and the engine is a common point of failure for coolant leaks. And it's a $30 part. Well, in the video from a couple of years ago, it was a $30 part. It's probably a $150 part now with how expensive everything has gotten. So the part itself costs next to nothing, but to replace that part, you have to remove like everything on the right side of the engine to get to it. And it's like 2 or 3 days of labor to take all that stuff off and put it back on to replace that little part. So almost all of that $3,000 is labor cost. So I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet on it and just put it into the dealer. It's not something I trust a TA mechanic to do. It's not something I trust the shop here to do. The shop here screws up stuff working on my APU. Just doing basic things like an oil change on my APU, they screw things up. I could probably, and they also charge as much as a dealer. They used to be a good deal here. They used to be like really reasonable prices, but they've gotten really close to bankruptcy a few times, and they've started charging absurd prices on their shop. So not only are they really bad mechanics, they also charge like dealer premium. So I think I'm just going to end up putting it into the dealer over at Tech. But anyway, I'll wrap up this video and get this uploaded. And I've got a couple of days until I head out. The trailer is a preloaded trailer. It's supposed to be ready for pickup Thursday, Christmas Day, the 25th, after 8 a.m. Basically, the trailer is supposed to be ready by 8 a.m. I suspect that it's actually going to be ready before 8 a.m. I'm hoping it's going to be ready before 8 a.m. I'm on such a tight schedule, and it's winter, and I'm driving through some of the worst places in the country to drive in the winter. So what I'm planning on doing is leaving Oklahoma City at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe earlier than that, maybe like midnight, and arriving at the place to pick up the trailer in Dallas by like 5 or 6 a.m., 2 or 3 hours before the trailer is supposed to be ready. And hopefully the trailer's ready early. If it's not, then I'll wait around for 2 or 3 hours for the trailer. And then get rolling hard and put as many miles on it as I can, and just try to give myself as much extra time as I can on the load. But anyway, I need to wrap this up, get things packed away, and get the hell out of here and get back to the house before traffic gets too bad. So have a good one, and I'll be making more videos whenever I get back out over the road in a few days. Bye.